Greetings, fellow One Piece fans. It is Corey from Super Kami Guru 9000, and this week is a cause for celebration because there was a brand new One Piece anime TV special. It is known as One Piece 3D2Y, and you know what? It kicked all sorts of booty! You should definitely check this out if you're a big fan of the One Piece manga or anime series. In fact, I'd say it's mandatory viewing. This was just a really entertaining special, and what surprised me about it was how great the production value was. If they'd have only polished it just a little bit more, they could have easily released this to theaters and made all types of money. They'd basically be pirating that shit, because, you know, One Piece. The other reason to check out this special is not only the incredibly badass action and the animation and the awesome villain who has a surprising amount of depth to him, is that at the very end of this week's special, you're going to get a tease for a character that you have not seen in a long time. So I think this goes without saying. Massive spoiler alert if you have not seen this special yet, because I'm going to be talking about all of the cool moments. One thing that I really liked about this special, and something that really caught me by surprise, is how much of a nostalgia trip it was. In the very first half of the episode, you get to see a huge recap of the War of the Best, and all the way up to Ace's death from Akainu, and it's handled really well. The animation and production value here is really great, and it almost has like a hand-drawn style to it. But I really wish it could always look like this because it's so gorgeous and impactful. And what's really cool about this special is you actually get to see what was going on during that 2-year time period where Luffy was training and the other Straw Hat Pirates were off doing their own thing. And you get to see this is when Luffy was first starting to use Haki for the very first time. And it's perfect that his opponent in this special just happens to be a master of armament Haki, and his name is Burndy World. World is one of the coolest villains I have seen from any One Piece special, and he happened to be designed by Oda himself. He actually has the form of like this big Viking-looking like pirate, and what I really love about his design is that he's wearing this horned helmet with one broken horn on this side, and his older brother, who's very small and sickly looking, actually sits on his shoulder, and he's wearing a helmet very similar to that, except that one of his horns is also broken, except for the one on the other side, so when he sits on his shoulder, they sort of like complete the look of the horned helmet, and I just think that's really clever and awesome. But World is awesome, and a lot of that has to do with not only his Haki abilities, but his Devil Fruit power, which is known as the More Fruit, or the Moa Moa Fruit, and this gives him the ability to increase the size of an object, its power, and its speed. So an example would be if he takes like a cannonball, he can actually like make it grow 100 times its normal size, and fire it at 100 times faster, and it'll have 100 times more speed. It's awesome to say the least, and this combined with his Haki abilities make him a huge threat. And at first, I thought he was just sort of a dumb, one-dimensional villain. He just seemed like a big, angry, pissed-off guy who just wanted to get revenge against the world government because he was in jail. But there's actually a lot more to Burndy World, and they reveal that towards the end of the special, when you get to learn that the reason he holds such a strong grudge is that he can no longer trust anyone, and that's because he was actually sold out by members of his crew to the Cypher Pole agents and the Marines. And when they put him in Impel Down, they actually froze him in a huge chunk of ice, and it put him in this like state of suspended animation, so that when he finally escaped, he was just as angry as when he finally went in, and he still had all of those memories fresh in his mind. So when he finally joined up with his old crew members, he couldn't fully trust them, and thus he was a little more dangerous around them. Plus, he didn't really see them as friends anymore, and he just uses them as an excuse to sort of finish his goals. That's where Luffy comes in, because during this time period while he's training, Boa Hancock is still obsessing over him, so she decides she's going to help him out a little bit by sending him some food, but she doesn't want to distract him directly, so she sends some of her handmaidens and sisters to go and deliver this. However, this is when Burndy World learns that the warlords are looking for him, and he knows that Boa Hancock is nearby, so he decides he's going to go after her first. Unfortunately, he runs into the sisters and gets into a big fight with Luffy and ends up kidnapping them. That's when Luffy has to go on an adventure with Boa Hancock to save her sisters. And that's when all the action takes place, and it is awesome! Everything here is so great. Luffy and Hancock fighting against the big blind fishman Sebastian was so incredible. All of the incredible fights and the punches, everything is felt. There is so much impact in the animation this week that you just cannot help but get excited. And if you wanted some Boa Hancock fan service, you're definitely gonna get it this week. She has a fight with this one mad scientist lady who actually makes herself younger again. And let's just say this, she cannot withstand Boa Hancock's charm. I mean, who can? I also like the fact that Buggy gets to fight against that one guy who has the cube abilities where he can actually transform everything into cubes in the floor, and he actually touches Buggy and turns him into this big cube. But luckily Buggy is able to use his abilities to escape, but he ends up going into his weird little creepy chibi form again. But he gets a little bit of help from Boa Hancock, and that's just another really standout scene. But the best fight is definitely Luffy going up against World at the very end of the episode. The choreography here is fantastic, and I love the setting of their battle in this big circular room with these spikes all over the walls. There's a scene where Luffy gets knocked up against him and he barely dodges death, and then he ends up fighting against World and using his hockey abilities combined with his Gatling, and he even uses the Red Hawk ability, technically for the very first time in terms of when it takes place, and he's able to defeat World by sending him into the wall of spikes. But World does not give up. Even after being impaled and defeated by Luffy, he walks out, picks up the massive cannon, and fires it towards this massive army of Marines. But luckily, Dracule Mihawk is there, who jumps up in the air and cuts it in with his sword, and it's awesome. It just shows that even though World was that powerful, those warlords are still on an entirely different level, especially Mihawk. He doesn't even have to do or say much this week, and he leaves an awesome impact. We also get some cameos from characters like Perona and Akainu and all that stuff as well. Otherwise, the special does end really good. It ties everything up, but the best thing about it, the best thing about it is at the very end of the credits, we get a cameo from Sabo, an adult version of Sabo that we have never seen before. He has a top hat, he's got the pipe on his back, he's pouring sake for Whitebeard and Ace, and I do not know what to take from this. Does this mean that he's going to be playing an important part later on sometime in the story? Is he going to show up sometime in the Dressrosa arc? All I know is I'm excited, and I have no idea why they decided to include that scene in this week's episode, but I loved it. So, what's the rundown on this special of One Piece? It was incredible. It was an experiment that I think worked really well, and it just shows that they don't always have to make like a One Piece movie every year or every couple of years. Honestly, I kind of wish they could do like one of these specials a year because they're just so incredibly entertaining and unique. And this is a story that doesn't like clash with anything else because it takes place during a time period that we never got to see before. And they really took advantage of that, and they went crazy with it. And there's just so many little details that make this episode fun. There's a lot of humor. There's tons of action. If you wanted action, you're going to get it in this special. Whether it be just Luffy's training on the island or when he's fighting against all of World's goons and even World himself, it's all really entertaining stuff. There are some people I can imagine who might have some problems with the fact that Luffy's using Red Hawk for the first time, or the fact that World is using the armament hockey all over his body just like Virgo did. I don't have a problem with it at all. It still makes sense, it doesn't conflict with anything, and just the amount of cameos and the Sabo stuff at the end is what really makes it. And the animation, oh my god, the animation and the artwork, they really breathe some life into this special by making it look really cool. And not only that, but Luffy even had like sort of his own special costume, because if you remember that during this time period, he actually put his hat up, and he's wearing this hoodie in this week's episode, and it also manages to give this arc like its own special distinctiveness. And it fits right in, and it's just awesome, and it gives me high hopes that they're going to pour some of this energy into the Dressrosa arc, because I haven't seen anything in Dressrosa as impressive as what I saw in this week's special. And you could call this filler if you want, but because Oda was behind the special and that it fits within the timeline, I'm going to consider this canon. I just think it's awesome. It had a great villain, it had great action, a lot of great Luffy moments, and even though it technically is like a prequel and you knew that there was no way that Luffy was going to die or anything, there was still a lot of tension at the very end when he was fighting against World and getting slammed up against all of those spikes and everything. This was just a really high-octane, great special that the One Piece fans are going to love, And I also think it's great for people who are trying to get into One Piece for the first time, because the first half of the episode gives them kind of a good quick rundown of the things that have been going on in the series with all of the different characters, what their dreams and aspirations are, why they joined the Straw Hat Pirates, and you even get to see why they separated. At the very end of the episode, you get to see when they came back together. And then, of course, there's the Sabo scene. I don't know what to take from that, but it's so awesome. I will say that I loved this special. It wasn't perfect by any stretch of the means, because there were some scenes that I felt were a little slow, maybe a little unnecessary. Maybe we didn't have to focus on Buggy the Clown so much. Maybe he didn't have to have so many ridiculous scenes. Otherwise, it didn't really sully this special. This was something that was made for the One Piece fans, and it's something that I'm going to remember for a really long time, and I really hope that Funimation gets a hold of this, and eventually when they get to this part in the series, they decide to do like a release of this, or maybe put it as like a special features on one of the DVDs. But considering the length of the actual special, it's the size of an actual movie. They could totally just give it its own singular release, and I would be okay with it. I just really dug this special a lot. And, you know, One Piece is a series that, the anime series anyway, that it doesn't really do filler too often, and I've noticed that whenever it does filler, it does it really good, or at least it tries to be as competent as humanly possible. The actual little mini arc they had right before Dressrosa I thought was handled really well. It was only 3 episodes long, and, you know, if you would have cut that down, that could have been like its own special movie as well. And this one sort of had the same vibe, except that it had much better production value, especially in all of the action scenes, which there was pretty much a cool action scene nearly like every 5 minutes, so you're definitely going to get that. If you've been like needing like One Piece action, or you're like want for the action in the One Piece anime series has not been satiated, then watch this special. It will pump you up in ways you cannot describe, and it will make you want to go out and learn to use hockey yourself. So, I loved this one. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5, and I'd like to do a more in-depth review of the movie later on, because we've already done a lot of like Dragon Ball movie reviews, and we're currently working on our Naruto movie reviews. In fact, we're almost done with our next one, which is Naruto Shippuden Bonds. Stay tuned for that. That is going to be released very, very soon. And I really would like to go and do all the One Piece movies as well, and just really analyze them completely from beginning to end, and all of the characters. But on a first impressions and on a first view on this one, I freaking loved it. So I'm going to give this special a 5 out of 5. Check it out, One Piece fans. You will not be disappointed. Thank you guys for watching my review today. Before you leave, make sure and hit that like button so you can give this video a thumbs up. And if you guys watched the One Piece 3D 2Y special, what did you think about it? Did you have any favorite scenes, favorite action scenes, favorite cameos? Was it a huge nostalgia trip? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Please tell me with your comments below, and make sure to subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and make sure to also follow us on Facebook and on Twitter.
Do you like Amazon.com? I know I do. Corey and I now have an Amazon link in our video description box below. And if you go to it and buy anything through Amazon.com, it will support our channel. So bookmark that link, make it happen, and support our channel without having to do a damn thing.
Another great way you guys can help support our channel is by donating directly through our PayPal link in the description box below. We recommend $2 a month, although this is completely optional. But the best way to go about this is by sneaking into your mom's room and taking $2. This way, she won't even notice. And we won't have to shake you up for all of your lunch money. So guys, that concludes this review today. Super Kami Guru 9000. Out.